Thomas Shelby does not fill silence. He weaponizes it. Every pause, every stare, every word withheld becomes pressure. And in that pressure, people reveal themselves, submit, panic, or confess before he ever has to speak again. Thomas Shelby's greatest dominance tactic is not violence, money, or even intelligence. It is restraint. In a world of men who mistake noise for authority, he understands a brutal truth. The loudest person in the room is usually the least dangerous. Shelby enters a conversation like a man arriving at a funeral for everyone else's certainty. He does not rush to explain himself. He does not overperform confidence. He lets the room lean toward him on its own. That is the first lesson. When a man does not need to talk to prove he belongs, everyone else starts wondering why he is so calm. And calm, in the Shelby universe, is never innocence. Calm is a warning. This is why his silence feels unnatural. Most people use speech to protect themselves. They talk to cover fear, to soften tension, to buy approval. Thomas Shelby does the opposite. He withholds language like a blade kept just out of sight. The absence itself becomes the threat. When someone in power speaks too quickly, they reveal urgency. When they speak too much, they reveal insecurity. Shelby gives neither. He lets other people supply the emotional content of the scene. Their nervous laughter, their rambling, their explanations, their need to fill the void all become evidence against them. He is not only listening, he is measuring. Silence gives him time to watch the micro errors people make when they are uncomfortable under scrutiny. That is what makes him terrifying. He does not dominate through volume. He dominates through the feeling that every second you speak, he is learning how to defeat you. In practical terms, silence slows the tempo of the interaction. It forces the other person to perform under pressure while he remains untouched by it. The human mind hates unresolved silence. It starts searching for meaning, approval, or danger. Shelby feeds that instinct by offering nothing. He turns the room into a psychological vacuum, and everyone else rushes to break first. The one who breaks first loses. That is the hidden mathematics of his power. Thomas Shelby also understands that silence makes every word he does choose feel expensive. In normal conversation, language becomes cheap because people overuse it. They apologize too much, explain too much, promise too much. Shelby speaks like a man who has already paid the price for every sentence. That economy gives his words weight. When he finally says something, the room treats it like a verdict. This is one of the most sophisticated forms of control in human interaction. Selective verbal scarcity. By speaking sparingly, Shelby increases the perceived value of his attention. People begin to think, if he is talking to me now, this must matter. And once a person believes your words carry more value than theirs, the balance of power is gone. He does not need to shout instructions. He only needs to place a few precise words into the air and let the silence around them do the rest. Notice how often he pauses before answering questions. That pause is not hesitation. It is choreography. It signals that he is not reacting, he is deciding. Decision creates hierarchy. Reaction creates dependence. The men around him often speak as if they are trying to survive the moment. Shelby speaks as if the moment belongs to him. He delays, and the delay itself becomes theater. In the pause, others project their fears. They wonder whether he is insulted, amused, or preparing punishment. He never has to confirm which one it is. The uncertainty is stronger than certainty. Psychologically, this works because humans assign power to those who seem comfortable with ambiguity. If you can remain still while others are emotionally moving, they assume you possess a deeper understanding of the situation. Shelby exploits that assumption with surgical precision. He rarely fills silence with reassurance, because reassurance lowers tension. And tension is useful. Tension makes people reveal their motives. It makes cowards over-explain and liars embellish. It makes ambitious men volunteer their loyalty before being asked. Shelby's silence does not just intimidate, it edits the behavior of everyone in the room. But his silence is not passive, it is aggressive. Thomas Shelby uses it to build a battlefield where other people are forced to speak first, think first, and expose first. In negotiations, the person who talks less often controls the frame. Shelby understands framing better than almost anyone. He does not arrive trying to win the argument immediately. He arrives trying to define the emotional architecture of the exchange. And silence is the architecture. When he stares at someone without answering, he creates an unbearable gap between expectation and response. People expect social friction to be resolved quickly. Shelby refuses to resolve it. That refusal destabilizes the other person's ego. They begin to wonder if they have offended him, underestimated him, or accidentally revealed weakness. Once that thought appears, the conversation belongs to him. They are no longer discussing the deal. They are trying to survive his judgment. This is why his silence is so effective against aggressive men. A blustering opponent expects conflict to be loud, immediate, and symmetrical. Shelby breaks that expectation. He lets aggression collapse into awkwardness. He lets the other man's performance become embarrassing. And embarrassment is one of the fastest ways to strip a human being of authority. Nothing humiliates a showman more than an audience that does not applaud. Shelby often behaves like that audience, silent, unmoved, almost bored. That boredom is devastating. It says, without saying it, I am not impressed by your noise. He also uses silence to force others into self-betrayal. Under pressure, people hate dead air. They keep talking, and the more they talk, the more they reveal. Shelby knows that a nervous man will volunteer information simply to ease the discomfort of being watched. He does not need to interrogate with force. He interrogates with presence. The room becomes his instrument. The pauses become traps. The longer someone struggles to fill the void, the more they expose their fear, their greed, or their guilt. By the time he speaks again, he already knows where the fracture is. This is the real genius of his control. He does not merely silence others. He makes their silence unbearable and their speech incriminating. That is control in its purest form, making the enemy cooperate with his own defeat. There is also something deeply aristocratic about Shelby's silence. Not aristocratic in the sense of wealth alone, but in the sense of control over appetite. Men who cannot control their impulses usually cannot control their voice. They interrupt, they justify, they overstate. Thomas Shelby, by contrast, behaves like a man who has mastered his own internal weather. That mastery produces authority because people instinctively trust those who seem less owned by their emotions. His silence says, I do not need your approval. I do not need to persuade you into respecting me. I already understand the outcome of this conversation. That implication is more powerful than any threat. Humans are social creatures, and social creatures fear exclusion, uncertainty, and loss of status. Shelby knows that if he withholds validation, others begin to chase it. They want his reaction, his nod, his acknowledgement, his judgment. He becomes the scarce source of meaning in the room. Scarcity creates worship. And yet, what makes him especially dangerous is that his silence is never empty. It is charged with memory. When Thomas Shelby goes quiet, it often feels as though every wound he has ever survived is standing just behind his eyes. That is why people read his silence as depth. They sense that something in him has been through fire and decided not to speak about it. The absence of explanation creates myth. People respect a man more when they cannot fully categorize him. Shelby weaponizes mystery not because he wants to seem romantic, but because mystery keeps others guessing, and guessing keeps them weak. In a world of informers, liars, and opportunists, silence becomes a defensive fortress. It protects him from giving enemies usable material. It prevents emotional leakage. It denies surveillance the satisfaction of clarity. The fewer words he gives, the fewer handles others have on him. This is why silence is not weakness in the Shelby world. It is insulation. It is armor. It is a way of staying unreached while standing in the center of a room full of people who think they are in control. At the deepest level, Thomas Shelby turns silence into a weapon because he understands human insecurity better than human speech. People are not controlled by logic nearly as often as they are controlled by interpretation. They read pauses as meaning. They read expressionless faces as judgment. They read withheld words as power. Shelby knows this and uses it to build a private empire in the minds of others long before any gun is drawn. His silence forces people to project. And projection is dangerous because once someone starts imagining what you think, they begin responding to a version of you that exists inside their own fear. Shelby becomes larger in their mind than he is in the room. That is the final stage of psychological domination. You do not just influence behavior, you occupy imagination. When people fear what you might say, they start policing themselves. When they fear your silence, they start collapsing under their own anticipation. This is why Thomas Shelby is more than a gangster. He is a study in controlled presence. He proves that real authority is often quiet, and real menace rarely announces itself. The world expects power to arrive with noise because noise is visible. But Shelby's method is more refined. He lets silence do the heavy lifting. He makes others carry the emotional burden until they crack. He turns the absence of sound into a structure of domination so complete that people obey before they even realize they have agreed. And that is the chilling truth. Thomas Shelby does not win because he speaks best. He wins because he understands that the mind can be subdued by what is not said. Silence in his hands is not emptiness. It is pressure. It is strategy. It is the quiet force that makes everyone else reveal exactly who they are. Thomas Shelby teaches one brutal lesson that most people never learn. Control is not always loud, and power does not always announce itself. Sometimes the most dangerous man in the room is the one who says almost nothing, because silence makes everyone else confess their weakness. If you want more deep breakdowns like this, stay with Vanguard Logic. Subscribe for more.